Hi, how's it going? I'm Ann Merrill, and this is Using Herbs to Calm the Nerves. This class is for Vita House, which is an event space at Monopole here in Berlin. I was really looking forward to seeing it, and I'm looking forward to doing herb classes there when it's open and we can meet again in real life. But for now, this is an offering to that community about how to use herbs. The thing that really appealed to me about Vita House is it's about this intersection between health and art and sustainability, and I love that combination too. So I feel like we are allied in that. I think that most of the people who will be watching this who have a connection to Vita House already know a fair amount about natural healing, might be into yoga or other movement therapies or massage or, so what I'm going to try to do here is basically like each class I'm going to talk about one herb so you can get to know that particular herb better, and then we're going to talk about some of the ways to use herbs for health, and so that you can have more confidence and be more specific with what herbs you're using for different purposes. A little bit about me first. I'm an herbalist, as I said. I guess like I'm a lifelong environmentalist. I went to a school that's like these forest schools they have here in Germany. I mean, this is back in the States, but that same sort of thing. We're out in the woods, learning about habitat, learning about nature. So I've always been a passionate environmentalist, but out in the woods and looking at nature and plants, I've just always been so curious about how can we use them for healing. And so I studied it, I was interested in it. In 2006, I went to herb school to really get serious and have this be my career, So then I did that was really cool, learned a lot. But afterwards I felt like, okay, I knew like what herbs to use for what, but then how do you do that? How do you actually put this into practice? And so I did a couple other programs. I did a personal fitness training program that was really helpful with like the health psychology side of things. And then I also went to massage therapy school. And so I've focused on sustainable forms of healthcare and how we can have either whether you want to think of it as a lower impact on the earth or positive impact on the earth, but so how we can take care of ourselves and take care of the planet at the same time. That's my focus. So that said, I am going to get into the actual material of this class. I've put up on my website a couple handouts. I made it just a black and white version. This is in color if you get it off my website. This is about linden, which is the plant that I'm going to be talking about today. And then there's a second one that's an outline of what I'm going to be talking about today. So if you are like me and you like to have something to follow along with, you could go ahead and grab those PDFs and print them out, and you'll have those to follow along as I go. So, linden. So I have up here, I have the scientific name. It's in the family Malvaceae, which is the Malva family, which is a very mild, safe, soothing family. Just say that in a real general way. I've got a couple of different species listed here that you will commonly see in Berlin. There are other species here as well, and there are also horticultural cultivars, where somebody has taken these plants and crossed them in order to get whatever characteristics they wanted for garden plants, basically. So there's a lot of different varieties of linden. So this picture is a linden tree. It has it's a typical tree with one stalk. They don't generally do that naturally. They tend to grow like a shrub with a bunch of different stalks. And so usually when you see a linden tree with one central stalk like that, on one central trunk like that, it's probably cultivated. Somebody probably planted that or has at least been tending it and wants that tree to be there. Right here is a bit of text. It's a photograph I took. That is right near the Abbey of St. Hildegard. Hildegard von Bingen she's a legendary, famous medieval German nun herbalist. And she talked about Varieties, which is basically green chi. It's like the life energy of plants, and she believed that we need it for healing, we need it for it to be healthy, and that linden is one of the plants that's one of the most intense concentrated sources of this green chi, Varieties. And you can experience that even just from being underneath a linden tree. This picture down here, when you see it in color of the light, the sun coming through the leaves, it's just this wonderful glowing, it just feels wonderful to be underneath a linden tree. And they've been a very important part of Germanic culture for a really long time. In Berlin, one of the most important streets is called Unter den Linden, and that means under the lindens. It is planted with linden trees, and in traditional German culture, pre-Christian, they would have a linden tree at the center of a village, center of a community, as the place where where court cases were done, where there were community meetings. It's basically so being underneath the linden tree makes you get along with other people better. It's a nice, soothing place, and so court cases are going to go better, meetings are going to go better. So Unter den Linden, it's creates a more pleasant space for people to be together than if it were other trees. I think it's definitely true. And around this time of year, they get these wonderful flowers that have this, it's like walking through perfume to be underneath them. I picked these a couple days ago, so they're not very fresh, but I wanted to show you. So this is what so these little flowers hanging down, and they have these, it's called a bract, this thing on top. This leaf, this flower with bract is there you go, is the part that's most typically prized for tea. It makes a delicious tea. You can definitely use the leaves as well. You can use the leaves as tea. I like them when they're young. They're just really nice just to eat, and when they're pretty young, you can tell because they're shiny and new looking, but pretty good. They're pretty big. Anyway, they work really well if you like to make like a lettuce wrap or that kind of thing, where you put something and roll it up and eat it. They're really great for that. But you can put them in salads. Yeah, edible, mild. What else? They are slimy. How can I be forgetting this word? They're mucilaginous. They are demulcent. They're demulcent. So moistening, soothing. And the flowers are very often used in blends for sleep, relaxation. Because it's a very mild and safe herb, it's often used in these blends that are for children. It tastes good, has almost honey kind of taste, so It's, it's very palatable. It's an easy thing to get children to drink compared to a lot of other herbs. So this one is the picture from my herbarium that I pressed. And I think, here's another cool thing about linden. Okay, so apparently, I don't know a whole lot about woodworking, but I've read that the wood is very fine. It's white and very fine. It doesn't have really distinct rings in it, which means that, and it's easy to carve, which means that it's very, very good for making musical instruments, because when the grain in wood is really fine, then it has a better sound quality than wood that has different texture for the different rings, and it's easy to work. So I guess people would make a lot of musical instruments from it. So it's got a very I'd say sweet and social kind of a character to it. So that is the plant that I wanted to introduce you to, especially today. I think it's a good one to know in Berlin, especially. It's an important cultural plant here in Germany, and in Berlin specifically. It's all over the place. And when it comes to actually gathering things yourself in the city, I think trees are where it's at, because they're nice and high, and the dogs can't pee that high, so and in Berlin you can gather a handful of herbs, as long as you're getting it not in a Naturschutzgebiet, protected wildlife area. So as long as it's just a regular park, you can pick a little bit of that for yourself. Enjoy. Now, I'm going to move on to the outline. So, the very first point I want to make is very meta. Why is relaxation so important? Now, I'm assuming a lot of you are already really interested in natural healing, and you probably have heard of sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. I'm not going to go too deep into it. If you're not familiar with what I mean by that, then it's definitely something to look up, because it's a really key thing to understand about healing. What it basically comes down to is sympathetic is often called fight or flight. It's this we're ready to go, very focused and alert, and the blood is going to your heart and your lungs and your big muscles, and you're just ready to act. Parasympathetic is often called rest and digest, and it's when you're relaxed, or more in that direction. And the life energy in the blood is more dispersed throughout the body, and so and the immune system is turned on. When you're in the fight or flight mode, I was like, all right, I have more important things to deal with right now. I'm not gonna even consider healing at the moment. When you're in a parasympathetic dominant mode, then your body can get to the business of healing and repairing, and including just your everyday maintenance that we've got to do in order to stay in reasonable health. I think it's easy to sort of think of relaxation as a luxury, or oh, wouldn't that be nice? But anything you're trying to heal from, it doesn't matter what part of your body, it doesn't matter what's going wrong, absolutely anything where your body needs the time and space to do some healing, it's going to help if you make an effort to relax, at least some of the time. So, and this is an area where herbs can be really helpful. It's an area where herbs really shine. And in herbalism, we often use this idea of herbal allies. And part of what I really like about that idea is that I think it makes it clear that the herbs aren't doing it. The herbs are your allies who are helping you do the thing. Because because I think also it's easy to think that like, oh, you something's going wrong, like you got sick or you got a little scratch or something like that, and it's just going to go away on its own. It's not going away on its own. Your body is doing a lot of work to heal it, and so herbs that help you relax can act as your allies in helping your body do that work, the work of healing. Okay, so the first little section here is called Lifestyle Tips. And this is just, I think these are the sort of meta level, most important things about relaxation. The first one, I find this to be incredibly helpful, is sit down and write yourself a list of what relaxes you. Because what we're looking for here is not, okay, there's a difference between what you do with your free time and actually relaxing. Because a lot of people will say, you know, oh, I spent the weekend relaxing, I, you know, binge watched a show or something like that. But how are you actually feeling when you're doing that? Like I have one person who had been sick for a really long time, just couldn't shake this head cold. You know, how, what herbs should I take was the question, right? I'm sick, what herbs should I take? And I said, you know, are you taking time to relax? I said, if you are, you know, binge watching a scary show, a really exciting show, and you've got yourself all hyped up and you're in this sort of fight or flight mode, you can't heal. Your immune system is shut off. So you need to, it's not just that you need to stay home and do something not productive, that you have to do something that's actually going to get you into that relaxed state. If you feel kind of fuzzy, maybe your vision gets a little blurrier, that's the kind of state you need to be in, like when you're in a massage, or if you take a bath, or, you know, whatever works for you, really whatever works for you. The point is that state and that the feeling. I mean, you can feel like, okay, now I'm in this different mode. What are the things that put you into that mode? And this is something that I've done. I just have a list of the things that put me into that state. So this, because sometimes, you know, you're overwhelmed and it's hard to figure out what to do. And I can just look at my list and think, oh yeah, that's right. You know, if I sit and just doodle, that helps me. Like, so I would recommend write the list of things that works for you. It's going to be different for each person. Another very, very important thing is to get enough exercise. So this sympathetic and parasympathetic, sympathetic dominance means that your heart rate and breathing rate are going to go up, and parasympathetic means it goes down. And so this system is part of how, is the main way that you start exercising, you're just walking along, and then you start sprinting. This is the system that your body uses to be able to supply enough energy. So when you're, especially if you're doing things like intervals, you know, if you walk, sprint, and you're varying the amount of energy that you are forcing your body to provide, and you're shifting that back and forth, that improves your body's ability to switch and to do it gracefully and without getting stuck, you know? So thinking about working that, I think that's a really important aspect of like people say, like, you know, exercise fights stress. Okay, that's really general, but specifically exercise that's making your body have to adjust the amount of energy you're providing, going up and down and up and down and up and down, is going to get your body better at that. And so then it'll be easier for you to get into relaxation, easier for you to feel stimulated when you need that, and to go up and down. The third lifestyle tip is use herbs. So let's get into ways to use herbs for relaxation, for calming the nerves. The first one is directly go out in nature and be with plants. Well, it's profoundly relaxing, can be. And like I mentioned with the linden trees, just being under them can help just bring you to a calmer state. Another way that I really like to use herbs for calming the nerves is bathing. I like to use, like actually a lot of times if I have old herbs that I, like zero waste tip, if I have old herbs that don't look that great anymore and oh my gosh, should I throw this out? Can, you know, maybe they're good ones to put in a tea, make a tea and put it in the bath. I'll use, what do I use? I don't know. Calendula. I use calendula. I use lavender. I'm more likely to actually just make a tea of lavender and put that in my bath than to use an essential oil. You're gonna you get more, like a, you know, essential oil is like one little tiny slice of what an herb has to offer, right? And with a tea, you get a much broader range of you know, aspects of that herb, I think. So, and with bathing, I think, all right, basically with all of your grooming, whether it's, you know, bathing but also brushing your teeth or, you know, anything that you're doing, it's really easy to sort of like to kind of do that in the background while you're thinking about other things, and here I am in my sympathetic dominant mode, blah 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 blah. But grooming is actually, I mean, it's very like, it's active self-care, right? It can be an active self-soothing. And I think if you remember when you are in the bathroom to, you know, have gratitude for this running water. Water's sacred. And to be conscious of how it feels, like, oh, I'm washing my face, and notice touching yourself, notice stroking yourself, notice putting, you know, whether it's soap or oil, as you're bathing, just notice, be present in your physical body. That can be a way of soothing the nerves. Besides the bath itself, like, so what I really like to do, I think this is one of the absolute most useful things for calming the nerves. I got it through Ayurveda, from learning about Ayurveda, is skin oiling, which is considered to be a really important treatment for calming the nerves in Ayurveda. And so I always do it toward the heart. But I think this process of touching all of your skin, I think is, I noticed that for me, it's certainly an important part of that treatment. But then also just, of course, just physically having the oil on the skin makes the skin work better. It gives your body a sense of where your boundaries are, which I think is really helps you feel sort of calmer, because there's less confusion about where you end and the world begins, if that makes sense. And of course, you can use infused oils for skin oiling naturally. What else? Grooming generally. Yeah, I mean, herbs are so much fun to use in just, you know, scrubs and masks and all these different things. And I would consider all of these practices, if you try to use them this way, can be part of calming the nerves. The next thing I put on there is aromatherapy. This is something that no matter how long I do this, I'm always surprised by how profoundly effective aromatherapy can be. Just taking a minute to smell things and to be aware of the change that creates in you. My favorite form of aromatherapy is to smell fresh flowers, and I've got some sweet alyssum that grows in my balcony boxes, and I just go smell that and just, you know, to be in that moment of sweetness for a moment. I think that's a way that we can use herbs to calm the nerves. And then, of course, you know, now we're going to get into teas and tinctures, putting them in your mouth. So tea is a water extract and a tincture is an alcohol extract. The next section, so I've got categories of herbs. I talk about like what types of herbs you might want to look at, and then I'll talk about specific herbs. So the categories of herbs to consider. Now, this is the stuff where I think if you kind of know, like, oh, that herb's good for calming. Like this is where you can start to get a little bit more specific in choosing which herbs to use. So the first category I'm going to talk about is adaptogens. These are herbs that make you more resilient, so that you can tolerate stress more, whether it's, you know, sort of psychosocial or physical stress, so that you will be less reactive and have more endurance. They tend not to be very, you don't necessarily notice it immediately, you know, but after a period of using them for a couple weeks, you can find that life's a little bit easier, you know. So that's for stamina, for, like, you know, getting through long periods of stress. That's a category I would definitely look at, category of herbs to look at. Another category of herbs to look at is nutritive herbs. So this is, this is a really good strategy to use with herbs. So instead of going straight for the herbs that you know will just relax you directly, this is back to this idea of the herbal ally. Like what kind of herbs are going to help you, like, come with you as you do the relaxing. And here the nutritive herbs are really important. I don't know, I almost don't even want to say the word magnesium because I don't want to, like, you know, take these whole beings that are herbs and, you know, just talk about this one mineral that's in them, but it is a very important mineral. Basically, like, stress depletes magnesium, and magnesium deficiency makes it easier for you to get stressed, and so it's this vicious circle. And how can I describe this state? I get in this state sometimes where you just kind of feel like no matter what you do, you're just sort of like wound up, like when this happens to me also, I inflame more easily and I'm more allergic and just, and focusing on the high magnesium herbs can really help me, like, just be able to handle things better myself, you know, not so much like, oh, I'm bringing in this herb that's going to relax me, as that I'm kind of using herbs as if they're like vitamins and minerals, you know, like just using them as nutrition so that you're more equipped sort of to do it yourself. So I use a lot of oat straw. Oat straw is really good for that. But yeah, that's it. That's in the list. It's in the list. Okay. Constitutional support. So constitution is like your body type. And I think that sometimes when people are trying to use herbs but they're not having a lot of success with it, or they feel like it's not working, it's important to sort of look at this frame of, well, what's this person's constitution? And this is like are they hot or cold? Are they dry or damp? And if the herbs are going in the wrong direction, that can kind of make somebody even more off balance, even if those are calming herbs. So you want to, it's a good, I always think of it as it's like one of the lenses I check, like, oh, how does it look through that? Oh, okay, yeah, it looks good through that too. So this is something where you might want to check if you feel like you're not having success with the herbs you're choosing. Now I'm going to go through a list of herbs that are typically used as calming herbs and just sort of why you might choose different ones and what different qualities they have. The first one on the list is Calamus. And Calamus, I'd say that one's it's pretty intense. To me, very, you know what it's really good for is when you don't want to care, when you're just like, I don't, my teacher Michael would talk about how people used to use it for trekking, you know, when people used to have to walk to get to anywhere else they wanted to go, you know, and it might be like, oh, now we have to walk for 20 days to get to where we live in the summer or whatever. And Calamus is really great for that, where it's just like, okay, all I'm going to do all day is walk, you know, and you're boring things. Like I've used it for when having to do like tasks or work that's boring and you just want to just not care that much. Calamus is really good for that. And it has an affinity to the lungs. So if you've got lung stuff going on as well, you know, then might be a good one to consider. It's a root, so you make it by decoction, not infusion, which means simmering it rather than just pouring hot water over it. The next one is California poppy. It's a poppy. It's in the poppy family, and it, how can I say this? It has that similar quality like poppy of being relaxing, sort of, you know, fuzzy, sleepy a little bit, and the pain relieving aspect of opium as well, somewhat. So, but it's not, I don't think you get super high off of California poppy. It's milder. I don't think it shows up in drug tests either. It's like, I don't know, poppy light, kind of. So definitely something to consider if part of why you're feeling stressed out is some pain. That would be a good time to think about California poppy. And it is, so an important thing to think about with calming herbs is that some people like stony herbs. They like herbs where they feel kind of out of it and a little bit drugged. Some people hate that. And so this is an area, you know, it's always going to be this way in any type of, whether it's natural medicine or whatever. There's always going to be things that, you know, works for one person, doesn't work for another. And with calming herbs, this category of like this distinction between stony herbs and not stony herbs can be really important, because you can have some people who they really hate that stony feeling, and if you give them herbs like that, they might just, they're resisting that feeling so much that they'll get even more stressed out. So you want to be careful with that if you're giving it to anyone else, or if you don't like that feeling yourself. You know, California poppy, I would say, is in the stony direction, so you want to watch out for that. If you like that, great. The next one on the list is chamomile. Chamomile is so classic for calming the nerves, right? And what can I say about it? Chamomile is such a powerhouse, and it's just funny how it gets sort of underestimated. I mean, it's kind of so common that we don't, you know, people don't take it that seriously sometimes, I think. It has a lot of great properties. It does a lot of different things. Be careful, because some people are allergic to it. Something, you know, people can be allergic to anything, but it is something that, you know, it's not that uncommon for people to be allergic to it. It has a pain relieving aspect to it. So, you know, again, if pain is part of the reason why somebody's stressed, that's something to consider. It's also soothing to the digestion. So if upset belly is part of the stress. And I love this phrase that chamomile is for babies of all ages. So it's really, it's a good thing to take when, I just had this a couple days ago. You know how, even though you're an adult, some days you just feel like a toddler. You're just like, and you just like want to throw a fit. That's a good time for chamomile. The next one on the list is hawthorn. Hawthorn is a heart herb, first and foremost. Definitely not stony, clarifying wort. And this is a really good one to consider if if you have this sort of heart-related stress, I would say. It depends on the batch. Sometimes it tastes pretty good, and this doesn't taste as good, but it's pretty mild, and it's a nice one to put in a tea blend, especially if you get any cardiovascular symptoms from stress. Or in general, it's a good tonic herb for the cardiovascular system, as well as it's definitely calming in and of itself. Just on its own, it's calming. Hops. Hops is a pretty famous one, huh? It's it's the flavor in beer, and I don't use it much in tea because it has kind of that skunky kind of taste like beer, and so I don't know, I use it now and then in a tea blend, but not very often. I'm not crazy about the flavor. It's bitter and it's a little weird, and it's pretty it's one of the herbs that people will put in pillows for you could stuff a little pillow with herbs and have that in your bed as a form of aromatherapy, and hops is a pretty common one to do that with. If you like the smell, you could think about that. It's pretty easy to find all over Berlin too. There's a ton of hops. I've harvested it myself quite a bit. And also, so maybe also being aware of the fact that hops is relaxing. Maybe if you're having a drink in the evening and you feel stressed out, maybe have a very hoppy beer and see if that is more relaxing to you than if you had wine or something. The next one on the list is lavender. Very classic, right? This is one where just the scent can help you relax. As far as putting it in a tea, I use it as just a small amount. It has a very strong flavor, and so it's one of those ones I kind of think of it as like putting pepper in your food. Like, I like black pepper, but I don't want like mostly black pepper as my meal. Right? I want it just as the little seasoning. So that's kind of how I think of lavender in a blend, tea blend. I probably wouldn't have it be more than 10% of a blend, maybe 5% of a blend. And it is drying. I tend to get dry pretty easily, and so it's something that I would want to watch out for that. I would want to make sure to balance that out in a blend. I would want to use it with something demulcent so that I wouldn't get too dried out from using it. But it depends. It's heating and drying. So if you think, well, I tend to be cold and damp, then there you go. Maybe it balances perfectly for you. Lemon balm is next. Lemon balm is, it's another one I think of as a baby herb. It's an herb you can use for babies. It is, it's such an all-rounder. I use it a lot. So when I travel, I like to go to herb shops. I like to check out herb shops. And a way that I can have something to ask for to begin a conversation with somebody who works in an herb shop is I'll go in and ask them for lemon balm tincture. It's easy to ask for in any language because it's Melissa is the scientific name, and so people know that at a herb shop, and so I can go in and anywhere in the world and ask for Melissa tincture, and they'll know what I'm talking about at an herb shop if in Europe or North America or whatever. And it's great because It is calming, and so, you know, it helps with the sort of travel stressful, right? Even when it's really fun, it's stressful. And it helps with digestion. So if I'm having, you know, I'm eating unusual food, or I'm eating at different times from what I usually do, or my, you know, my belly's a little confused, helps with that aspect. And then it also, if I feel like I'm sort of a little under the weather, coming down with something, it's diaphoretic, which means lifting the energy to the surface, which helps get rid of pathogens, and antiviral, and that whole action. Okay, so diaphoretic, it lifts to the surface, which is spreading the blood out, right? Which is this same parasympathetic action. Like obviously, it's like in fight or flight mode, your blood's going to go into your muscles, ready to provide power, and so when you use an herb that brings the energy out to these parts of the body, the other parts of the body, then that's going to trigger your nervous system to go more in the parasympathetic direction. So there's a relationship between diaphoretics, which you'll often see them listed as causing sweating. That's not exactly it. It's that they bring the energy to the surface. Okay, so that's lemon balm, Melissa. Linden, I talked about extensively earlier. So it's demulcent and with, you know, a little bit slimy, so it's going to be moistening. So that's an example of one that you could, you know, balance with lavender. So you're going to have like a drying and heating and a cooling moistening together, and then you've balanced a little. Linden is also has a really nice flavor. So if you wanted to combine some of these herbs to make a pleasant tasting blend, you know, and California poppy doesn't taste like much. Chamomile tastes pretty nice. Hawthorne can taste pretty nice. Lavender can add a little something different. Lemon balm tastes nice. Linden tastes nice. You can kind of, you know, put them together and get a lot of different variations, you know. The next one's Motherwort, and like the first thing I think of when I think of Motherwort is palpitations, you know. I tend to get that where it's when I'm really, really, really stressed out. I mean, when I'm really spun, and you'll just if you don't get it, you're lucky. But if you do get it, it's that feeling where you feel like, oh, my heart's gonna pound out of my chest. Motherwort is something to look at for that. It's generally relaxing, and anything that is cardiovascular focus, more or less. Mullein. We're going to talk about mullein more in the third week. Talking about the breath. Mullein is also stony. It's got that, you know, you'll feel kind of out of it, a little like spacey, shall we say. It has affinity for the lungs, and so yeah, if you've got a stress and lung thing going on simultaneously, if you like being stoned, it's one you might think about. The thing to be careful about with mullein, using it for a tea, is that it has these fine hairs that can be really annoying, and you have to strain it through muslin, through fabric, so that it gets those little hairs out. Very, very important. But it has a pleasant, almost minty flavor. It's a pleasant tea, but as long as you've strained it, it's a pleasant tea. Can you tell I've made that mistake? I've made that mistake. Oat straw is one of my absolute favorite nutritives. I use it a lot. I use it like in, I don't know, half of my tea blends, something like that. I use it a lot. it says that magnesium thing of you, and of course it has a lot more in it than magnesium, but it's a very nutrient dense plant, and it will help you to be able to self-regulate better, I guess would be the way to put it. I kind of think of oat as the unshockable, like however freaked out you are, however weird you're being because you're so freaked out, like oat doesn't care. Oat's all right. Well, that's my own personal take on that particular plant, is that I've seen it before, whatever. So it's a very unflappable kind of a plant, I would say. I like oat a lot. And that's the oat straw is what I'm talking about here, which is the grass, not the seed, not oatmeal. You can buy, so on my website I have sources for where you can buy things. So all of these things are available for you to buy with no problem at all if you order online from, there's several different herb companies listed on my website. So the next one on here is passion flower. Passion flower, yeah, I tend to use that as a tincture. Tincture is an alcohol extract. You can use it in a tea, that's fine. It doesn't have a lot of flavor. It's not like an unpleasant flavor, it doesn't taste great. And I've used a lot of passion flower in my life. It grows wild in Austin, Texas, which is where I used to live before I moved to Berlin. So I used to be able to harvest a lot of it and make a lot of tincture from it. So I've used this plant a lot. And it's kind of stony, and yeah, I always thought of it as relaxing. And then another herbalist told me that she thought that it's more that it helps you change states. And she said she thought it was also helpful for people who have a hard time waking up. So like, you know, those people who are like, they wake up and are like, in the morning, right? She said it also helps for that. That's interesting. I would say in general it has a very, like, it lets you do things instead of forcing you to do things. So I had a client who had been, she was having a lot of trouble sleeping because something had happened where she'd had this trauma where she woke up into something horrible happening. And so so it was like she was scared to fall asleep because she was scared of being awakened into something terrible, right? And so it was really a problem because, you know, she was trying to take sleeping pills and stuff like that, but then she would fight so hard against it because she had so much fear of sleeping. And so I gave her just passion flower tincture. I think it had some other things in it, but passion flower was the main herb. And she just loved it because she said it let her go to sleep. She wanted to go to sleep, now she could, rather than feeling like it forced her. And so, yeah, I really, really like passion flower as a relaxing herb. It's also, a muscle relaxer. So if you have that kind of, where if your stress is very muscular, physical, and you just kind of, want to force your muscles to relax a little bit, if that's the kind of manifestation you get from being stressed, passion flower is something to think about. Skullcap is the next one on the list, and let's see, it's very relaxing. That name is so descriptive, right? I think of it as being like, is it true if somebody's saying headaches are their main symptom? Is skullcap the first I would look at? Not necessarily, but it's one that would be possible. will be on the list. Yeah, maybe. Could try Skullcap. Vervain is the last one on the list. Yeah, it's funny. I don't use this one very often, even though it's people like it a lot. It's not that there's anything wrong with it. It's bitter, and bitter things stimulate digestion, and so I've just had trouble with this herb. So if I'm taking it because I'm stressed and then it makes me hungry, then I'm thinking about food, especially if I'm trying to fall asleep. I can't fall asleep if I'm thinking about food, so I don't put vervain in any kind of sleep formula for myself, because I've had that problem where I'm just lying there like, okay, I guess I feel relaxed, but man, I sure could use a snack. And what else will I say? I want to talk about, well, okay, the thing with tinctures that is really nice for calming herbs specifically is that they're very portable, convenient, so see, like, yeah, I won't get one out. It's the little brown bottles, right, with the dropper top, which is like about say maybe like 15 doses or so, right? That's like about a week's worth of a tonic is one of those bottles. So part of taking herbs to calm the nerves is, I mean, I guess you could do it like, 2 or 3 times a day like that. But what I really like to do is to do it as needed, because then part of what you're doing is you're bringing consciousness, mindfulness to the process, right? So you're creating a situation, and the same with if you make an aromatherapy sniffer, using essential oils, that these kinds of things to use as needed, then you just say like, okay, I'm feeling stressed out in this moment, I'm going to do something about it. So even that sort of, that act of self-love, that act of self-care, that you're saying like, I'm being self-aware enough to notice that this is happening and I'm going to take action. That, I think, is healing in and of itself, right? And then you take it and you can basically be creating a trigger, you're creating a pathway in your nervous system that says like, oh, when I take this, then I feel relaxed, and that strengthens the effect of it. So I think that it ends up being stronger that way than if you were just kind of doing it, when you wake up and when you go to bed or something like that. I've used passion flower that way a fair amount, and it can be really helpful to have it with you. And I'm stressed out, and take it, or an aromatherapy sniffer. I've used that way too, and just bringing your consciousness to the fact that you'd like to be more relaxed right now. That can be helpful just in and of itself. And I also like to use tinctures when it's for going to sleep, because then you can just have it next to the bed and you can say, oh, I'm still not asleep, and take a little bit more. Oh, I'm still not asleep, and take a little bit more. Yeah. One more little tip when it comes to falling asleep. This is something I just learned recently, and so I'm pretty excited about it. I guess it had been about 40 years that, when I was first introduced to this idea of having a way of falling asleep, like a thing that you do to fall asleep, right? And the first way that I was taught was this sort of, it's progressive muscle relaxation, right? I think it was like in first grade or something. I was like 6 or 7. One of the teachers taught us to do this, and to take a nap, and where you like go around your body and you tense and relax and say goodnight to the different body parts and all this stuff. And I just didn't like it. I don't like this process, but that gave me the idea that there is such a thing as having a procedure you go through. And then over the years I learned some other ways, like through yoga nidra and whatever. People have all different ways. And then finally, I read something that was this, it's one of these kind of, junky articles that was, top trick that Air Force pilots use to fall asleep anywhere in 2 minutes, whatever, big sensationalist headline. And I read the article, and I tried the whole procedure, but what I found out for me personally, just this one part of it is what's really key for me, and that is relaxing my face. And it was one of the steps in the, how pilots fall asleep quickly. And the idea behind it is that, okay, so you have all this stress going on, and you have emotion about the stress, and then you express that emotion through facial expressions, or at least I do. I make crazy facial expressions. It's part of my personality. So my face is very tied into my emotions, right? And so when I learned this, so now I can lie down, and the way I got really good at this was actually on a 20-hour flight, right? So I knew oh my God, it doesn't, sleeping pills don't really do any good because you're going to be, disturbed and woken up and blah, blah, blah. And there's just so much going on. So I thought, if I can really learn how to be good at falling asleep, and I think I did this 26 times in one flight, I think. I don't know why I was counting. That's whatever. And all it is just, to kind of get relaxed, and then just start to notice oh, actually this muscle over here is a little tense and relaxed. And there's so many muscles in your face, and you start to just notice all these little tensions and relax them. And it just puts me right to sleep. And so, I don't know if that particular thing will work for you, but I just want to kind of put this idea out there that if you're having trouble with sleeping, absolutely call on the herbs as your allies. But something that I've found is just so incredibly helpful is to have some kind of mental process, a procedure that you do to fall asleep. For me, it's relaxing my face. Maybe it's something different for you, but I think that it's asking a little bit too much of the herbs to lie there stressing out and then think that they're gonna make you fall asleep. They're there to help you. They're there to help you doing what you're doing. So you've got to do the falling asleep, I think. I think that is it for this class. I hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, that's it for now. Take care. Thanks for listening.